even when you come out, obviously, like there's still what I hadn't thought about is that you then have to sort of come out in every situation. I mean, if you want to, but like it's not just like one coming out because then you have so many different groups of people and new people you meet. And do you say it? How you say it? How do you say it? And I don't know. It's an ongoing story, but I feel like now making myself known as Princess Diana or Gwyneth Paltrow, people don't tend to. I don't tend to have to come out anymore.
I'm Zack Newmark, and this is Damn Yankee, the show that brings you all your favorite entertainers, performers, comedians, authors, artists, and musicians as they pass through the Netherlands and those who are based here. Originally from Sweden, now residing in London, Linus Karp has created and performed the shows Diana, The Untold and Untrue Story, How to Live a Jellicle Life, Life Lessons from the 2019 hit movie musical Cats, and Gwyneth Goes Skiing, about the Gwyneth Paltrow skiing accident trial. Both Gwyneth and Diana have toured internationally and won multiple awards, and their creator, Linus Karp, is here with us today, joining us from Vancouver. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Zach. Thank you so much for having me.
That's really wonderful because I just have to say that your Diana show and the clips that we've seen so far, I can't even figure out a way to describe it accurately. When when people were asking me who I was talking to today, I said he's an actor, and he's a very funny actor and a very interesting performance about Princess Diana. But I really didn't know how to describe it after that.
I feel like I still don't know how to describe the show almost 3 years in.
Please tell me a little bit about it and kind of, how you got to the point, of taking the show on the road in its current form.
Yes, so Diana the Untold and Untrue Story is a celebration of Princess Diana. It's sort of a version of her life where we go through the main events that we all knew happened, how she, met Charles, got married, met the Queen, went into this love triangle with Charles and Camilla, eventually divorced and so on, did activism around AIDS and HIV and landmines. But we tell it in a way that's not necessarily how it happened, but maybe how it should have happened instead. So we use, puppetry, multimedia, a lot of audience participation, musical numbers, to tell an alternative story of, so in some ways how maybe her life should have played out instead.
I mean, where does the idea come to take this topic on specifically?
It's actually started. So my partner Joseph, who's also involved in the show, he puppeteers Camilla amongst other things. His mum is a big Diana fan, and me and her sort of bonded over Diana memes. And whenever she had a birthday or it was Christmas, something like that, we used to find her like the weirdest, tackiest Diana merchandise online that we could find and send to her. So she got like a wristwatch, she got a teaspoon, she got like a bust in plaster that barely looked like Princess Diana at all. And then for her 60th birthday a couple of years ago, I thought, maybe I'll write her a little Diana story. So I started writing this story of Diana speaking to her from heaven. And as I was writing it, I was sort of like having a lot of fun with it. And then I thought like, maybe there's more to this. Like maybe there's actually a show in here. So and now here we are.
Who was there when you presented this kind of like, I guess this play in a living room?
Oh yeah, so it was basically my partner's family. So his two parents and their two siblings and one of their partners, and then me and him, and we sat there. I was giving out the roles, and we all read it around the table, and had a laugh about it, and then after that, I sort of was like started working on it and giving it a lot of rewrites, and thought, oh, actually, this could very well work.
Was there any alcohol involved at that point? That first read through?
Always. I mean, Linda, his mother, is Irish, so the answer is always yes. And I think this is the kind of show where, having a drink kind of helps.
How long have you and Joseph been together?
We've been together 10 and a half. Yeah, it will be 11 years in the autumn.
Okay.
So a long time, forever in gay years.
but certainly this wasn't like his family's introduction to you or anything along those lines at all.
Oh
By
no,
any means.
no, we've already been together quite a while at this point, luckily.
So they kind of maybe knew what they were getting into when they all started receiving copies of your script.
Exactly. I don't think they were too shocked.
What has kind of the development been from this sort of living room stage play into the performance that you're it's critically acclaimed. I mean, you've got a ton of great reviews. What's kind of how has it developed in that way?
Oh, thank you. I think it was, I guess, streamlining it to making sure it was like one clear narrative, well, somewhat clear narrative story. And also, I mean, when I wrote it for our little reading around the table, I was like, I gave everyone a role and had a lot of roles in it. So it was also just finding a way of making quite a big show with many characters on a small scale. Because when we first opened it, we were in like a small downstairs black box space in London. And it's obviously grown quite a bit since, but it was finding ways to incorporate the characters without adding actors, because we did it on a very small budget at first. So that's why a lot of the ideas of puppetry and multimedia and also audience participation. So there are actually 14 audience roles in the show where people from the audience get cast and have to go up on stage and deliver some of the lines, which also is, which I think is really fun and makes each show quite unique as well, because you never know what your supporting cast is going to be like.
And do they ever improvise or take you off in different directions?
Sometimes a little bit. We tend not to give too much room because we want to make sure that they feel quite safe. So we like make it quite clear what it is we want them to do. But sometimes, you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you get someone who's a performer who hasn't been on stage for a while and they want to really take their moment. Sometimes you get someone who may have had a couple too many drinks and you never know what they're going to do. But it's been amazing to see, like, before we opened the show, I was quite worried about like relying on this much audience participation. I didn't know if people were going to be up for it or deliver, but actually like people always really step up, and it's amazing the kind of things they do and the performance they give and how they all sort of like come together and support the people who go up on stage as well. So that's felt very special.
I guess also I'm wondering, because obviously this isn't your first show. You also had a lot of press and publicity around your Gwyneth Paltrow show as well, around her skiing trial, and I'm not sure if your cat show had quite as much publicity around that. But I'm wondering if those shows also have this kind of element of audience participation that you've brought to the Diana show.
Yes, so the Cats one, How to Live a Jellicle Life, was sort of the first full-length show I wrote, and I created it during COVID. So when I first had the ideas, I very much wanted a high level of audience participation, but then I realized that obviously, like, because it was during COVID, I had to sort of scale back on that quite a lot because, yeah, I mean, when I first opened it, you had to have social distancing in the audience and all those things. So I just had to include audience participation in a way that didn't actually like involve them very closely. So then after that, I wrote Diana, and then after that, Gwyneth as well, which I'm actually wearing the t-shirt today. And the Gwyneth show has a similar level of audience participation, done in a similar way. I mean, obviously slightly different, but the same kind of vibe. And I think I very much love that live feeling. Like, I don't want theatre to ever be, film or Netflix. I don't want people to just come back and sit back in the seats and watch a show. I want people to get involved and for every performance to be unique. I sometimes think of it as like, we don't perform for the audience, we perform with the audience and create the show together.
Do you do it this way because maybe is it a little boring to do the same thing night after night?
Yeah, I think it really helps for us as a performance as well, because that just means that every show will have that element of freshness and you don't know what's going to happen. So that is really fun. And then it also means that we can have a big cast without paying for a big cast, which is always helpful, like from a producing side. We just get people to pay for tickets and then come up and perform.
Have any of these worked out really not the way that you wanted them to? Like in a really unintended bomb, or just really the audience wasn't receptive to this kind of different way of doing things?
Not really. I mean, we've had sometimes people are a bit shyer, or we actually had once we did the Gwyneth show in Edinburgh. There was a guy who's cast as Gwyneth Paltrow's boyfriend, now husband, in the show, and he, for some reason had to, like, he left quite early in the show. I think the people sitting next to him said that they got some phone call and hurried out. So clearly something else was going on as well. And so when the character is meant to come back in the second act, and I was calling him up onto stage, and he wasn't there anymore. And then there was this woman in the audience who clearly just took her chance, and she was just like, she replaced him. And then it became sort of this funny thing of like how much he's changed since last time and things. So like in a way it kind of worked out funnier for the show, but that was probably like one of the weirder ones. We did actually also have a woman who was very drunk for one of the late night shows we did, and she started moving around the set and things like that, which was a challenge. But from an audience perspective, probably quite funny, but for us it got a bit stressful.
Now, all of this is really quite a long way away from where you grew up.
Yeah, I'm from a small village in Sweden.
Yeah. So how does one go from, growing up in a small village in Sweden to portraying Gwyneth Paltrow and Princess Diana in, satirical farces on stage?
I think, yeah, the key ingredient is delusion, I think. Like, I am going to be a princess. I am going to be a Hollywood star. I'm not going to let my gender or nationality stop me. So, I mean, I've lived in London now for a long time. 12 years. It will be 12 years later this year.
How old were you when you moved out to London?
Oh, now I'm going to have to reveal my age as well. I was very young. I'm obviously 21 now, so I must have been... No, I was 20 or 21, I think, when I moved. So I feel like I've had pretty much my entire adult life in London. I mean, I still go back to Sweden quite regularly. So yeah, I mean, I think that's probably helped, like being around like the theatre scene in London and things like that. And then I think there's freedom to just doing what you want. I feel like when you're being in London, like being a foreign actor and also being queer and, wanting to do weird things, like it means that you're so rarely cast for the things you want to do, which is sort of like how the entire thing started with, like me setting up my own theatre company and started creating my own shows. Which is like I wanted to do things, and so often you're seen for like, some foreign receptionist with one line or whatever, and I just felt like I can do more than that. So I started creating my own work, and I was like, I'm not gonna let my abilities stop me from what I want to do, which has worked out quite well so far. I don't give people a choice. I tell them I'm Princess Diana or Gwyneth Paltrow, and they just have to get along with it.
Were you always kind of entrepreneurial in this way? Would you call yourself an entrepreneur, or are you really an actor who wanted to, just kind of create their own space?
I mean, I think I was very much... I didn't really think of myself as more than an actor at first. I was just like, I just want to be an actor. I just want to perform in things. But as I started creating my own shows, I've really enjoyed like writing. I mean, I've always written bits, but I never really thought of myself as a writer. So it was amazing to then actually be like, oh, I can actually write plays and stories. And same with like producing was something I only thought like, oh, that's just something for certain type of people. I could never do anything like that. I had no idea how it works. But then when you start doing it, you're like, oh, it's actually just about doing it, and you learn as you do it, which I think has been quite empowering in a way, because now I feel like there's not like every aspect of the of theatre I have an understanding of, and I have a knowledge of, and I can do. I mean, that said, I very much like when other people produce my work and I don't have to do all of that side myself as well.
So please tell me a little bit more about where you grew up in Sweden. What's the name of the village?
It's called Gånghester. Have you heard of it? No.
Not many people I summer there. Yes.
Yeah, of course. So it's a tiny village. I think it's like somewhere around 1,500 or 2,000 people there, spread out over quite like a big area. So it's like surrounded by forest. There's forest all around, which now going back there is like really beautiful and nice to go and visit. I think growing up as a kid is great, but I think when you reach like sort of like teenagers, and especially when you're queer and want to do like, theatre or entertainment, then it becomes a bit tricky. It's outside a city called Borås, which is the rainiest city in Sweden. So that's always exciting. But it's about 45 minutes to an hour from Gothenburg. So it's quite near the west coast, and the second biggest city.
Right. But then, so not a lot of opportunities, though, for you in theater when you were growing up.
No, exactly.
No. Well, did you have any type of arts education, at school, or was this really just, you
Yeah,
know?
I think we had teachers from like, because we were in this village school, and I think I think like the teachers there probably weren't like, I think they had quite a lot of freedom, because I feel like a lot of the times we got to choose how to present whatever kind of work we were doing. So often me and some friends would choose to present it through theatre. So rather than having a written test or whatever, we would just put on these shows and pretend to be whether if it was history, it would be like, oh, the old kings of Sweden, and showcase their life through theater or whatever. Which I think, I mean, that must have helped both my creativity and yeah, like the performance. So for me, that was probably quite good, and yeah, so that was really fun. And then I went to some of the drama groups as well as I grew a bit older. Um, but yeah, it wasn't a big scene.
Whether you've lived in the Netherlands for years or are getting ready to move here, the best time to learn the Dutch language is right now. Learning Dutch with the Delft method at Nedles is extremely effective because you start speaking the language from the very first day, actively putting the vocabulary you learn to good use. Nedles offers courses at all levels, both online and in person, at their location right here in Amsterdam. Their experienced teachers are specially trained in the Delft method, which combines studying a piece of text at home and then using words from the reading material in conversations during the next class. Students often say they feel supported at Nedles and praise the teachers for creating a safe space where they can overcome their fears of making mistakes. They also specialize in helping long-term immigrants, like me, tap into the passive knowledge they have about Dutch so they feel more comfortable speaking and writing in the language. Dutch classes begin at all levels on a rolling basis, so sign up today and save 10% using discount code PODCAST. Find out more at nedles.com. That's NEDLES.com. Nedles, Dutch for internationals. Do you remember the first time that you were cast in anything, that you were in a play?
Oh, I was actually, I remember we did like a show for our parents when we were 6. So we were like in Sweden in preschool, and I played the dad of some apes. And we threw some water on, I don't really remember more than that, but we threw some water on some people or animals who were trying to come where we were. So that, I remember that was the first, my first performance.
What are your parents like? Were they encouraging of you participating in the arts in this way?
Yeah, they've always been amazing. They've always been so supportive. Like, neither of them come from like a theater or entertainment or culture background. So I feel like I don't actually know, growing up in this small place, I don't know where I got it from, but they are both, I mean, they're both wonderful. They're both creative in their own ways. I mean, like, dad likes to think of himself as funny, and and mum used to, I mean, she still does at times. Actually, she paints quite a lot, and she went to, I think, arts college for like a year as a teenager. So she's got like an artistic side to her. So I feel like I've definitely drawn inspiration from both of them, and they've been amazing. Like, I remember when I was an awkward, shy teenager and wanted to get into acting, they were like encouraging me and driving me around the country to various drama schools, which I'm so grateful for, because I know that's not something a lot of teenagers who want to take that path like don't have that support from their parents. That's been really great, and they're amazing. They've come to see my shows many times as well. They've traveled to the UK from Sweden, and at Edinburgh Fringe, Mum has been out flyering for my shows, and she's the best possible flyer. And no one, this is like a middle-aged Swedish woman who just comes up to people and no one dares say no to her. Everyone just takes a flyer from her. She's great.
I mean, for people who've never been to Fringe, the flyering, handing out flyers on the street is such an important aspect of getting people into your shows. And
Yeah.
so I think to get your mom out there to do that job for you, it also maybe separates you a degree or so away from the humiliation some other performers feel out at Fringe, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still very much doing it myself. Sadly, you can rarely avoid it, especially when you start out, of course. But it was, yeah, she was great, and like this like charming, nice little woman comes up to them and be like, "You have to see this show. It's great." And yeah, like no one will reject her. As I go up to the same kind of people, and like 1 in 10 will take a flyer at best.
I imagine maybe it's a little bit of a cliche, but I imagine that the village that you grew up in was maybe, more on the conservative side and maybe a little less open to this type of show.
Yes, like yes, it was. I think I've somewhat. I think I've managed to live in my own bubble for a lot of the time. I think, especially as a kid growing up there, I don't think I would sometimes dress up as as a woman or whatever as a kid, and like whether it was for these like school plays or just like playing around with friends. So I think I was very unaware with that. So I think it's more when you become a teenager and then we changed schools and started going into like the slightly bigger city, and then when you start to as a queer person starting to like figure out your own sexuality, I think that's when you start actually like realizing that where you're growing up isn't and it's always as friendly and as open as it is in your mind.
Mm-hmm. And what was do you have a sort of, coming out story that you're open to sharing? Is it, was it difficult?
It was. I mean, I think the main thing, it was difficult for me. As in, like, it took me a very long time to come to terms with it. And I think the representation back then, which even though it isn't actually that long ago, I'm still very young. No, but it wasn't that long ago. But I feel like we did not have much queer representation really at all. Like not really besides Eurovision actually. Like that was the time you saw. But obviously then it was so like flashy and glamorous, and I was a bit like, oh, but I'm not just all that. And I think that made it take a long time. And I grew up Christian as well, and not that I really heard many negative things, but it was also like I just didn't hear anything. Like homosexuality wasn't just a thing that was talked about or existed in many ways. And I think so that made it really difficult. And it was I was 18 when I came out, and in a way it was almost like the people accepted it, and it almost felt weird when like I've had this battle for many years and it's been so hard for me, and then when I finally say it, people are just like, oh, okay. Yeah. Which almost felt like, oh, yeah, which felt quite surprising. But I mean, even when you come out, obviously, like there's still what I hadn't thought about is that you then have to sort of come out in every situation. I mean, if you want to, but like it's not just like one coming out, because then you have so many different groups of people and new people you meet, and do you say it? How do you say it? And I don't know. It's an ongoing story, but I feel like now, making myself known as Princess Diana or Gwyneth Paltrow, I don't tend to have to come out anymore.
Do you have brothers and sisters, siblings?
Yeah, I've got 2 sisters, so I'm a middle child, clearly desperate for attention.
And I mean, are they into acting, creative arts also?
Not acting, but they are both creative in their own way. So my older sister, she's based in the UK as well, and she works in fashion. And my younger sister, she's actually just releasing a book, which about crocheting. So she crochets, and she used to do a lot of modeling as well, and she used to do set design. So we've all done like creative things, but in quite different fields.
I mean, it's super interesting to be coming from this, really small village outside of any city in Sweden. A family that's supportive, but not, not in their own, in their own way creative, and still to have 3 of you come out that all have the sort of creativity and professional creativity. It's extremely interesting.
Yeah, I think my parents, I mean, I think they're amazing in many ways. And I think growing up, I always had the belief that like, and I think they gave that to all of us, that like what we can do whatever we want to do. And I didn't really have an understanding of like, that some jobs are seen as better than others. I just thought like, whatever job you want to do is the one you should be doing. Which, I mean, I think, which may have caused me problems at times where I was like, oh, is this really a manageable career path to be pursuing? But I think that's just opened up to us all going our own way and doing what we feel passionate about. And in many ways, that is such a blessing.
I know you said in your early 20s you left to go to London, but did you leave before that? Did you leave your village to go somewhere else in Sweden?
Yes, so I went to drama school. Um, I went to drama school when I was 18, after having finished like the standard schools in Sweden, and I did that for 2 years, and I think that's like the first time in a long time where I felt like okay, I feel like I'm at home, I'm with my peers, which was really fun. Even though it was also extremely cult-like, like looking back to it, like the woman who ran that course was just like in so many ways a cult leader, and obviously like we were also young and wanting to be actors, so at times looking back I'm like I can't believe we just went along with all the things she said and asked of us, um but it did also
You
like
have to tell me more about that. I mean,
no
like,
but
in what way? Like, what sorts of things are we talking about?
no, but it was very method acting based, so it's all about like you had to become the role, and you should also use like your own experience. And I think I had quite like a happy upbringing, so I think for me it wasn't as bad. But some people dig into their trauma, and she's not a psychiatrist or anything, so I don't think it was always healthy for some people. I think some people ended up having a difficult time, facing childhood traumas, and then when they leave drama schools, they all of a sudden don't have like even her support or anyone around them, and they've opened up all these wounds or these parts of themselves. And there was also things like there were people who were in relationships, and she would tell them that, oh, for this role, I think you're better off not being in a relationship because I don't think you would understand your character as well. And people would actually like listen to her and break up, and that's kind of disgusting. And she was saying how when we were approaching a final productions and we should really become one with our characters, and she was saying like if you get a phone call now and it's like someone from home calling you, you can now choose to either stay with the work or break off the work and pick up. So she was encouraging us to close off family and friends. And I just don't think, I mean, in my mind, if you're going to be a good strong performer, you need to have a healthy life outside of that as well, to actually stay grounded and stay healthy and well. So it was many things that after leaving I was just like, this is so not healthy.
And did you come to that realization when you were in the moment, or was it only later that you came into it?
Only later, because I guess I hadn't done that much acting, and because she said everything with such conviction, and everyone just listened to her, and you had her as this the leader. She was almost like a god to us in some ways, like um so it's only when I left, and even a while after that, because she would say like all actors do this, all actors do this. And then when I left drama school, like a month or so later, I was working on my first feature film, which is like a very low budget film, but there were some actors on it, and some of them were great, and I could see how they were working. I'm like, oh, they don't work in any way how she said that all the good actors work, and they still get good results. I was like, oh, this is clearly like what she's saying. I mean, in many ways does work, but it's also just one way of it rather than the way, which I think was very much what she was saying. And I think it's been when you finally then leave drama school and become your own person rather than someone who's just guided by her, you can then pick and choose what aspects of it you actually want to use.
I guess you're maybe happy to not be doing method acting. I'm not sure. I can't tell.
I feel like I see myself as a Hollywood star and a princess, so it's pretty method still. Yeah. No, but absolutely. And I think like those 2 years were very intense, and I learned a lot. But it's been good to be able to pick and choose what I can use from, and also be like I can go my own way, and I don't need to listen to her, and I can still be successful and give good performances.
And so, at what point did you actually meet Joseph?
So we met in 2014. Yeah, the summer of 2014. We were both working like a terrible tourist job outside of acting. And yeah, we met there. And after a couple of months meeting, we got together.
What was the terrible tourist job?
It's it's one of those that was cute at the time, but now a bit problematic, because it was at platform 9 3/4, the Harry Potter shop.
Okay.
And it was like back then it was like, oh, I used to love Harry Potter, but obviously her views have kind of ruined all of that, so it doesn't feel as nice a story anymore.
Am I sensing maybe a possible subject for your next play here?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like I'd rather play people I like.
So before you guys got together, did you already have this kind of Diana fascination?
Yes, a bit. I think my mum was a big Diana fan, so I knew obviously of her and I knew a bit, but it was very much like when I started looking into this show, I was reading up a lot and watching endless documentaries and stuff. Because even though I'm telling the untrue story, I was like, I want to make sure I know the real story and the real person as much as I can. Um, which has been very interesting.
So was it really Joseph's mother that kind of like brought this out in you, that like taking you down this path of you know, I don't want to say Diana worship, but you know, really kind of getting into it. Like if you weren't so into it, I mean, if you were kind of into it beforehand, but then you get into this relationship with someone whose mother is, you know, really interested, did that do anything for you?
Well, I guess so. I mean, and it was very much just like writing the story for her. And then as I was writing it, I was like, oh, I don't know really about this part. And I started looking things up more and more. And then, yeah, and then just, yeah. It's very interesting when you also then decide to play someone you're then, because then I just want to know everything and everything about them becomes so fascinating. Like, I've never really cared about the royals before that. But now I've been like, always like, watching every episode of The Crown and reading like Harry's book when that was released. I was like, oh, that's so exciting. Whereas a couple of years before, I would have been like, I don't care.
Is there a portrayal of Diana or of the royal family that you're like, oh, this nailed it. This is the best one. This is really, really the best.
I think all the recent ones have actually been very good. I think both Emma Corrin and Elizabeth Debicki in The Crown are so great, and like I was like they are different, but they both do like young Diana and older Diana so well. I think like Elizabeth Debicki really shows like Diana's warmth and humor in the later seasons as well, and I think that's really nice. And they both like having studied Diana a lot myself, like seeing them like nail the voice and the mannerisms and the looks. It was just like, oh, I wish I could look like them.
I mean, you've pulled it off. I mean, the way that you've when I saw some of the publicity shots for for the play, at first glance you're thinking that it's actually photos of Diana from 30 years ago.
Oh, thank you. I think it is fun because when we started doing the show, when we had our first photo shoot for it, I was quite worried. I was like, I really hope this will read enough as Diana, so it just doesn't look like some guy in a dress. But I'm glad that has worked, and I was like, I've put in a lot of work to find her and like her voice, of course, but also like her mannerisms, her and just her energy, I guess. And that seems to have been worked because given that we've done the show now for quite some time and we've taken it to so many different places.
Is there a Diana portrayal that for you totally missed the mark?
I don't. No, I actually like from all the films and stuff. I think they've been pretty good. Yeah, I don't think there's been a bad one in any of the major ones.
Would you tell me if you thought there was a bad one?
I don't know.
Why is it? Do you think that we're so far past when Diana died? Why are we still consuming so much media about her?
Yeah, it is interesting, and I feel like in a way, I think we were very lucky with the timing of our show as well, because I feel like that really was when like the sort of Diana Renaissance started as well. Because as we like after we announced the show, the first of the Elizabeth Debicki seasons of The Crown was like open the day after we started the show, which was like perfect timing. And the Queen dying obviously meant that Charles became king, and people started talking about Charles and Camilla and Diana again, and Harry released his book, and I feel like there's been so many things happening since we opened the show that just sort of like draws the attention back to Diana. But she's a very fascinating character, and I think obviously like, people are always fascinated by the royals, and she was just a royal that was a lot more human than others, and she actually like had had emotions, which is something a lot of them don't show. And the fact that she was obviously like a beautiful woman in dressing very well and being very fashionable, obviously like in itself is interesting. I mean, I like that. But then the fact that she did this activism that was, at the time, groundbreaking. Like she hugged and held hands with AIDS patients and talked about AIDS at a time where, no one wanted to touch that as a subject. And especially like a member of the royal family doing that, like that is groundbreaking, and that really broke down so many barriers. And that she actually genuinely cared. Like there's so many stories of how she made friends with some of these AIDS patients, and she would come back visiting them in hospital many times, even when the cameras weren't there, and made these friendships. As well as, her activism around landmines, which at the time, like, there were conservative politicians in government that said that she shouldn't involve herself in things like that, but she didn't want to listen. I think she was just like led by her heart in a way. And she talked about postnatal depression and eating disorders and these mental illnesses as well at a time when no one talked about that, and especially not a woman like in her position. So I think those are like, really groundbreaking things. And the fact that she broke free from, a loveless marriage and, a very, I mean, from an institution that obviously wasn't very good for her, and that a lot of people don't necessarily feel love towards, and died young. I mean, that obviously like makes her fascinating as well. It probably would have been a different story if she was still alive, even though that would be amazing in many ways.
Americans, you still have one last chance to collect the extra $1,400 the U.S. government owes you from round 3 of the stimulus package if you're behind on your taxes. The experts at My Expat Taxes can guide you through the process, just like they helped me. If you haven't filed taxes in the U.S. in a while, or ever, My Expat Taxes will quickly and easily bring you up to date with the IRS. That way, you can still collect that stimulus check, but only if you sign up and file by June 16th. Even after living abroad for 17 years, American tax bureaucracy used to feel like a Kafka-esque nightmare for me, but not anymore. My Expat Taxes gives me a real sense of relief with their easy-to-use, up-to-date software, maximizing tax benefits like the foreign earned income exclusion, and they even filed my bank account reporting at no extra charge. They are secure and reliable with a commitment to data privacy and confidentiality. So whether you're catching up or simply filing your return on time, let the experts at My Expat Taxes wipe away your tax anxiety. Use discount code DAMYANKEE and get 10% off your purchase. That's DAMYANKEE, Damn Yankee. At myexpattaxes.com, your life just got a whole lot easier. For you, I mean, you can hear the way that you talk about it, that you have a great deal of respect for Diana. So what I'm wondering is, how do you, portray her as this character in, what's really, a series of silly and farcical situations? How do you do that without actually being disrespectful or without betraying the respect that you have for her in the first place?
But I don't think it's too hard to maintain that, and like you can still have fun and in parts make fun of something, and like I think we sort of play quite a lot with the, I guess, the legacy. I feel like today Diana has become almost more of a myth than an actual person who lived. Like I say, like she's still so popular. There are like teenage girls who have Diana shrines in their room, even though they weren't even alive when Diana was. So there's almost like this myth around her. Rather, like people don't see her as an actual person, but just as this legend. Like people wear her faces on T-shirts and so on. So I think we'd play with that, and sort of rather than like making fun of the actual person Diana. And then I think Diana does come out pretty well in this show. I think the monarchy is sort of the main villain of the show instead, and the people involved in that. So I think like staunch royalists don't necessarily. Probably won't love the show, but people who like Diana probably will.
What's your appeal? What's the appeal to you then about, say, the Gwyneth Paltrow and the skiing accident?
I just love pop culture, and as the trial was happening, like all of these amazing quotes and moments and things that were memed online kept coming out of it. And I remember, like, I turned to Joseph, my partner, during the trial, as like when it was happening, and I was just like, don't you think there's a show in this? Like, imagine a show called Gwyneth Goes Skiing. And he at first said like, oh, I don't think so. It's probably too niche even for us. But then sort of like it sat with us for a few months, and we started thinking about it, and I thought it could be a really fun idea. And as we were doing Diana show, there was this theatre that we'd done Diana at who who wanted to speak to us, and they wanted us to do a Christmas show at that. So they asked us for ideas, and I said like, well, we have this idea about Gwyneth Paltrow's ski trial, and we had a couple of other ideas as well, and they were like, oh, we want the Gwyneth one, please. So at first we thought it was just going to be like this quite small Christmas show that was going to be running for a couple of weeks. I mean, we were very lucky because Leland, who's an amazing songwriter, who's written for people like Troye Sivan and Cher and RuPaul, he came to see the Diana show, and he really enjoyed it, and he told us afterwards like, oh, if you ever need a song for a project, let me know. And we approached him, and we're like, oh, we don't know if he actually meant that or whether they were just being nice. We were like, oh, remember, would you be interested in maybe writing a song for a new show? And he was so on board straight away. I was like, oh, I think we should have more than one song, and he ended up writing multiple songs for it. And they're all amazing, and he then helped us sort of like get the show really going. And when we announced it, I remember like the night before we announced it, I had a dream that we announced it and no one cared. It didn't get any reaction whatsoever. But it was very much the opposite, because we announced it and it got picked up by all kinds of international press, and, you know, New York Times and Variety and Rolling Stone were writing about it. It was so wild. And, you know, there were segments on TMZ where people were discussing about it. You saw on like Twitter, there would be these people discussing who should play the lead role as Gwyneth Paltrow, and like articles in countries like so many, like, you know, articles written about it in languages we don't even speak, and that just felt like so ridiculous. And all that attention obviously like helped the show have a much longer life than we initially thought. And the show could then grow and grow and grow as well. We could add more things to it and get more people involved, which has been so much fun.
How many different countries have you brought both shows to?
So Gwyneth has so far toured the UK and Ireland as well as the US. And Diana has gone to UK and Ireland and a few times, and then she's now ventured to Thailand. We've toured Australia. We've now toured Canada, and next up will be with you in Amsterdam, and then we're also taking the show to Sweden, which is very exciting because it's the first time I've ever taken one of my shows back home. So we shall see what that will be like.
What do you think you're going to get, if you bring Diana to the US, or are you going to bring Diana to the US?
There are no plans yet, although we don't know. I would love to. I think New York would be a really good place for it. But we haven't, there's nothing confirmed yet, but we're in talks about bringing Gwyneth back to New York for a longer run. And then I would like to have Diana like come along for a little bit of that as well, if we're there already. But we shall see how it plays out.
Is Gwyneth going to be in Broadway, off-Broadway, off-Broadway?
I don't know how many offs, one or two. No, because we did a shorter off-Broadway run in January, and that was like amazing. We sold out that run, and the reactions and reception there was just so much fun. I feel like Gwyneth is obviously, I mean, because she's American, I feel like the people in the States, especially when we did the show in New York and LA, they just got every single like little niche reference we'd put in, and that was really fun and felt really special. So we'd love to do more of that.
Yeah, and with the Gwyneth show, did you bring that also here to the Netherlands as well?
No, we haven't yet. So it's not actually. It's only been to the States besides UK and Ireland. So we haven't toured that one as much internationally.
Have you been here before? Have you performed in the Netherlands before?
Never performed. So I've been to the Netherlands once as a teenager, and that was great. But it's been a very long time. And Joseph and I have always talked about we wanted to go to the Netherlands for a long time, on a holiday or something. So it's so fun that it's, finally happening now that it's part of the tour.
Is there anything in particular, anything that you're looking forward to, anything specific that you want to do while you're here?
Oh, I don't know, actually. What should I be doing? What should I be... We're there for such a short amount of time, unfortunately, this time. So okay. I feel like it will be like... Well, yeah, we'll have a look around Amsterdam and then hopefully come back soon after. But what would you recommend? What is it? What can't we miss when we're there?
I mean, Peach, who is producing this episode, she and I were even talking this morning about just, even though it sounds like such a stereotypical thing that, doing the boat tour gives you, like any of the boat tours, whether it's one of the smaller, more, like comedic ones, you've got a number of comedians that give boat tours, or if it's one of the great big tour boats, just kind of getting that look and perspective from the city is actually a really, a really unique way of looking at Amsterdam.
Yeah, I remember actually that when we were there as a teenager, my parents had a friend who was living in Amsterdam on a boat. So we went on her boat, and they were like driving us around on the canals, and it was amazing. And like we stopped at restaurants, and they like brought food into the boat. Like it was, yeah, like, that was really amazing. So that's we should try and do that.
Tell me, what else do you have on your radar? I mean, are these types of well, I don't want to say solo shows because they're not exactly solo shows, but are these types of performances, the only thing that you're into right now, or is there more? Are we expecting to see more from you?
I hope so. Yeah, so we're actually working on a new show, which, I mean, you'll get an exclusive, but it's going to be announced very shortly, and it's going to open at the Edinburgh Fringe this year, so in August. So we've been trying to now write it and create it as we've been touring. So we haven't got as much written as we'd hope yet, but I think we have good ideas. So I'm excited about that, and for once, I'm actually going to play a man. So that's also
a departure.
Yeah, exactly. That is a real departure for me. So I'll see what that's like. It's been funny as we've been writing it. I mean, like, oh, it's so much harder to be a man. Like, men don't really have like personality traits. Well, like, how do I do this?
Can you tell us at all what it's going to be about, or what the subject matter is?
It's going to be very queer and very stupid, but it's going to be, even though it will lean into pop culture a lot, it's going to be an original story this time, rather than like focusing on a famous woman.
Is it something about you or from your background, or is it something totally different?
Well, it's going to be, part of it is going to be inspired by Sweden, which feels quite fun. So we shall see how that comes together.
Can you tell us a little bit what it's about?
No, I feel like it's Elsa. I feel like it's too. Oh, it's going to be. I don't think I can yet. I would see Joseph at the other side of the room shaking his head, like we're not allowed to say anything yet. And also at this stage, things may still change a lot. So I don't want to say too much now if it ends up being a completely different show.
But either way, the plan is still to take it to Fringe one way or the other.
Yes, so we will open at the Fringe this year. We're going to announce it, in only a few days.
Are there other types of roles that you're hoping to play, or that you're hoping to get into or to tackle? Do you ever have your eye on dramas or anything more serious?
I love drama, and I used to do like quite a lot of like, more serious plays and stuff as well. So I would love to do as many things and like as mixed things as possible. I would love to move into more screen stuff as well. I used to do a bit more of that before, but now obviously theatre's just taken up my entire time. And I do love theatre, but I would just love to do as many and as varied projects as possible. And I would love to, I mean, obviously, like the last couple of years, it's very much been us writing, creating, and performing our own work. But I would love to do a bit of just being an actor in projects as well, not having to do all the other sides. Because I love, I love all the aspects of it, but acting is, my main love. So I would love to just be an actor.
Anything specific in mind?
My dream role would be to be an elf in Lord of the Rings. So I'm still keeping my fingers crossed for that. I can be Galadriel, I can be Legolas, I don't mind.
Where does that come from?
I was such a big Lord of the Rings fan growing up. I would watch those films like literally every day. And I just wanted to live in that world, and I still do. And I think that's probably like part of like why I create, even though like our shows are kind of set like in the real world, they're very much set in a fantasy version of a real world. Mm-hmm. I think we create our own worlds in the show. Which is fun, where like people can behave in weird ways, and animals can talk, and most people are gay.
At what point are you going to be able to take a break? Because now with the Gwyneth show, you were going around a lot, and with the Diana show, that's been going on for a while. With Jellicle was going on before that. So, from 2019 to now, I mean, it's just kind of been like, one thing after another for you.
Yeah, it has been really, really intense. And it's just one of those things like, the more things you do and the better things go, the more things then starts coming to you, which is very exciting. But then it's, yeah, like it just creates more and more work. But I do, I also just love working, and especially when it's fun, obviously. So I'm always like, I love to take a lot of things on and keep as busy as possible. I mean, the worst kind of days for me are often when I don't have anything on, I don't know what to do. But that said, obviously, like I also need to make sure, obviously, that I have fun. We're actually getting married this year.
Oh my God.
Which is, I mean, but I don't know if that can be counted as time off necessarily, because I've heard that weddings can be stressful as well. But at least there will be something different and besides that. And even now on this tour, when we toured Australia, we had a week off afterwards and we went to New Zealand. And obviously, as a big Lord of the Rings fan, that's always been a dream. And then we had a week there where we were just traveling around and getting to see the country, which was amazing. So we try and make sure we get some time off. And even now when we tour places and like when we'll visit Amsterdam as well as when we've been here in Canada, we do make sure to get some time to just enjoy the places we're staying as well. So it's not just work.
Okay. Well, when are you guys going to get married?
September.
Is it anything special planned, or is it going to be something like a quick ceremony and get out of town for a while?
No, it's gonna. Well, we're doing it in like a barn on the British countryside. It's quite small, and I mean weddings are so. I mean, obviously you've heard, but like It's so expensive. So we're doing it like quite a small scale version, but hopefully like a lot of fun. I think being performers ourselves, we know quite a lot of people who are performers. So I think we're gonna have some great people singing and so on, and I also just want to make sure it's fun. I want it to be fun and reflect who we are. So yeah.
And your whole family's coming in?
Yes, my direct family will be coming in from Sweden, so that will be nice too.
So can you just tell me a little bit about how, where you had that idea for, or where you and Joseph together had that idea for Joseph to come out dressed not like, a puppeteer that you'd see in a magic show or something like that, where they kind of blend in with the background, but really, dressed up in his own way where you can see Joseph quite clearly with the puppet and throwing the puppet around, but also kind of acting simultaneously with the puppet to do things like flipping their hair. So tell me about, how you get the puppet involved and how, where that comes from.
So the inspiration for the puppet originally, have you ever seen The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt?
I have not.
Oh, I love it. It's such it's a very stupid, weird sense of humor. I mean, Tina Fey is obviously amazing in everything she creates, but they have this scene where Titus, one of the main characters, he goes to visit his then boyfriend and his entire Italian family, and the grandmother, like they're all these humans sitting around the table, and the grandmother is just this terrible looking puppet, and they all just treat her as a human. And I just found that so hilarious. It's just a short scene in the show, but I feel like that, like seeing this monstrous puppet just being treated like in such a human way, I think was just like, oh, I really want to do something like that. And I just sat on that idea for a few years, and then it just felt so right for Camilla. Obviously, like because the story is told from Diana's angle, Camilla is the other woman, and she becomes almost this like monstrous energy that tries to take Charles from her, and I think we wanted to create this like quite demonic puppet with a very scary voice, and then Joseph puppeteering. And Joseph does, besides the puppeteering, does quite a lot of things throughout the show. So we didn't want him to disappear. Like he should have a look that sort of like is kept throughout the show, and also because the puppet doesn't actually. It's more of a rag doll than a
totally a
traditional
rag
puppet.
doll. Yeah, exactly.
So it's like her facial expression doesn't change; it will stay the same, but. I think of it as like, the puppet, more than Joseph operating it, the puppet just possesses him. And the level of his performance and his facial expressions, like, have really increased during the run of the show as well. It's like he's getting more and more into this demon Camilla. And I mean, yeah, he just ends up stealing the show.
The other thing that I was wondering, and um, this is really totally switching gears and totally turning things around, but also a year ago in London, you and your partner were also the victims in a gay bashing incident as well, and you know, it does. We do hear about it here in Amsterdam from time to time about performers or people from the queer community who end up drawing the ire of somebody on the street. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened last summer?
Yeah, so we were just walking down. It was in July, and it was like early evening, so it was still light outside, and we were walking down in Soho, which, central London, very busy area, and also like usually very quite a queer area. And I'm just hit from behind with with an umbrella, which seems like a very camp weapon for a hate crime, and yeah, like with a wooden handle, and the wooden handle sort of like flies off, so he breaks the umbrella, hitting my head, and I've never felt a blow quite like it before. And then this man shouts that he would have killed me and stuff. So it was like, really nasty, but you're so taken aback, you don't really know what's going on at first. And Joseph starts sort of like, he makes sure that I'm okay, obviously, and I sit down with some people because it's just next to a restaurant, so I sit down there, they get me some ice and things, and Joseph calls the police straight away and starts following this man at a distance at first, to make sure, like, he doesn't want him to get away, obviously. And he then sees this man spit in the face of another man and like still being, quite aggressive, and decides to take him down. So he manages to I mean, he's been trained to do, like, self-defense and stuff, so he kind of knew what he was doing. So he gets after him, pushes him to the ground, holds him down, and basically like has him there until the police arrives and takes him away. Um, so I mean, which was quite amazing of him to do, obviously. But I mean, it was quite a traumatic thing to go through. You never think it's going to happen to you, and I've never been scared of walking around anywhere really, and I've never really thought about it. But after that, you just become so much more aware of your surroundings and of people acting weirdly. And we went to Fringe just a few days after that happened, and I was in such a weird mental place, and I was just. It felt like I was almost, because I was at the Fringe, I was dressed as Gwyneth Paltrow, and moving around in some of those areas, being very visibly queer. All of a sudden, I just felt like a target in a way I haven't felt before, and it was almost like I was expecting people to attack me, and in a way, I almost wanted people to say something to me so I could like snap back and get to like attack back, because I felt like I'd been quite brutally attacked, and I never really got to do anything back, and you just you get this anger that there's no space for. So it was a very a weird experience, and a very upsetting experience.
How did you, what did you have to do to deal with the traumatic nature of it? What did you have to do to deal with that?
I think, I mean, my initial reaction was just like, oh, I'm going to share this. I'm going to like, talk about, because I shared it on social media. I was just like, I want to share that happened, that these things do happen. Because, as a queer person, I think, especially in the last few years in London, UK at least, hate crimes towards queer people have risen drastically. And that's a very scary thing. And you've heard, sometimes you hear friends experiencing things. So I was just like, I want to make sure I share this so people, even outside the queer community, might know what's happened. And then as I was sharing that, then it got more reactions than I thought, and I ended up like, various media got in touch, and I was like, okay, great, I'll go and talk. I can talk to press about this if that's going to have an impact. But then once I've done that, I sort of just got very empty for a while, and then just I felt like myself being. I think Joseph probably got to experience like I would just get angry for like the tiniest thing would make me really angry, because I think I just had that anger inside of me that hadn't been allowed to be let out. So during the Fringe, they had a Pleasance, which is one of the main Fringe organisers, which we were performing with. They got quite a good mental welfare program there, so I was able to see a counsellor, and I had like a session with her where I could just sit and talk through it, and I think that really sort of like just took so much weight off me. After that, I felt so much better, and then I felt like I could focus properly on the show, and I just like became in such a much better mental state. So that was really helpful. But it's one of those things that, like, even though you don't want it to affect you, and I don't think about it much now, there are still times where, like, sometimes there'll be someone who reminds me a little bit of that man or acts in a little bit of a strange way, and I'm just instantly on high alert. And I've always been very, unafraid. And all of a sudden, there are times where I just all of a sudden become a lot more aware of my surroundings and what could happen.
Is this kind of tied to what you described earlier as being sort of, in your own bubble when you were younger and not really realizing what was different from, your life and your childhood versus what was actually out there?
Well, probably. I mean, it's fine because Joseph is very aware of his surroundings, and so often we'll walk around the street, and like I'll be skipping down, not really thinking, and then he's like, "Oh, there are some people there who look threatening," or "That did you see that man over there, like taking drugs on the street," or whatever. Like if there are things happening around you, and then so often I'm like, "Oh no, I'm just so so oblivious to a lot of the things happening." But I think this one obviously changed that, and all of a sudden I just because I think you never want to assume bad things in people around you. Like you just think like, oh, this is great, everyone here's obviously nice, and then when you experience something like this, you just know that there are things like that happening around you.
What happened to the person who was arrested?
I believe he was sectioned for a while, and I mean, it may go to court still. I think it's likely to go to court, so I don't know at what stage that is at, so we shall see. So I probably shouldn't talk too much about it, but we shall see what happens.
From a personal standpoint, have you continued doing therapy, or have you sort of set that aside?
No, because I did that one session which was really cathartic, and we was talking at the end to my counselor, and she was saying like, if you want more, we can do it. I feel like you've reached a good point now. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go and see, and I've not felt the need since. Like I feel like I got through like at least the issues I had then, and then things like being more aware in public is probably something that I mean that is just part of me now. And it isn't necessarily. I mean, obviously you should never have to expect that these things can happen to you, but I guess like being aware that it can is a useful thing to have as well.
Right. Well, I think I'm going to leave it there because this has been really lovely talking to you. And I just, being in Vancouver right now and, joining us from there with such a dramatic time difference, it's extremely appreciated. And thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much, Linus, for joining us today.
Thank you, Zach. It's been great.
It's really wonderful. Thank you.
Damn Yankee is produced in partnership with NL Times, the top choice for English language news from the Netherlands. Founded nearly 15 years ago, NL Times grew to become the #1 site for information about this country, featuring more news stories every day of the week than any other website. Keep tabs on the latest top stories and breaking news from across the entire country, not only in Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague. Find out more at nltimes.nl.
Damn Yankee is an NL Times production. The show was created by me and Peach Rizzo, and Peach Rizzo produced this episode.